It's the stroke of midnight on August 1st, 1981, and a brand new network called MTV flickers to life on cable boxes across America. The very first image? A grainy clip of two guys in bizarre outfits lip-syncing to a synth-pop tune about how videos are about to bury radio forever. That song, "Video Killed the Radio Star" by the Buggles, didn't just kick off a channel, it ignited a cultural wildfire that reshaped music, fame, and how we consume entertainment. But here's the twist that no one talks about enough. This wasn't some grand planned prophecy. It was a desperate Hail Mary born from a pair of overlooked dreamers scraping by in a London studio, betting everything on a gimmick that almost got shelved. Why did this quirky track, mocked as a novelty at the time, end up as the spark for an empire? And what hidden chaos, from label executives slamming doors to a frantic all-nighter piecing together visuals on a shoestring, made it the perfect, accidental blueprint for the video age? Stick around, because the real story behind that midnight premiere reveals not just how one song launched MTV, but how a moment of pure, unfiltered ingenuity flipped the script on an entire industry. You think you know the legend? Wait till you hear the parts that nearly killed it before it even aired. Ever wonder how the biggest ideas start with the smallest mishaps? Take Trevor Horn and Geoff, two guys who probably never imagined their paths crossing in a dingy London pub. It was 1979, and Horn, a lanky bassist in his late 20s with a knack for tinkering with tapes, was scraping by in session work. He'd grown up idolizing prog rock giants like Yes and Genesis, dreaming of crafting sounds that could bend time itself. But gigs were drying up, and frustration was his constant companion. One rainy afternoon, he spots a classified ad in a music paper. Some keyboard whiz looking for collaborators. Enter Geoff, a sharp-dressed synth enthusiast from the north, fresh out of art school and obsessed with emerging electronic toys. Downs had that rare gift for layering melodies that felt both futuristic and haunting, pulling from Kraftwerk's robotic pulse and Bowie's glam edge. They meet over pints, swapping stories of failed auditions and half-baked demos. Horn pulls out a riff he'd been nursing, a bouncy bass line laced with irony about how shiny new tech might wipe out the old guard of radio DJs. Downs' eyes light up. He grabs a keyboard and starts weaving in icy synth washes that make the room feel like a portal to tomorrow. What begins as a casual jam turns electric. They loop in a third wheel, Bruce Woolley, a songwriter buddy of Horn's with a dry wit and a talent for punchy hooks. Together, over late nights fueled by cheap coffee and cigarette haze, they flesh out lyrics that poke fun at fame's fleeting nature. A starlet sculpted by surgeons, beaming from a screen while the airwaves fade to static. It's satirical, sure, but laced with real unaise. Radio had been their lifeline, and here they were, prophesying its demise. The trio holds up in Sarm East, a creaky space in Whitechapel that Horn had access to through odd jobs. No big budgets here. They're using whatever gear they can borrow. Horn mans the 8-track recorder, experimenting with flanging effects that warp vocals into otherworldly echoes. Downs programs the Roland CR78 drum machine, its mechanical ticks giving the track that relentless drive. Woolley scribbles verses on napkins, capturing the absurdity of plastic perfection in a world racing toward video dominance. Sessions stretch till dawn, arguments flaring over tempos and tones, but that friction sparks gold. By spring, they've got a demo that's equal parts catchy earworm and sly commentary, clocking in at just over 4 minutes. Yet doubt creeps in fast. Woolley bows out early, sensing the project's quirky vibe might not fly solo, heading off to his own ventures. Horn and Downs rebrand as the Buggles, a nod to the Beatles' bug-eyed charm mixed with their love of gadgetry, and shop the tape around. Labels sniff it, then pass. Too gimmicky, one exec sneers. Sounds like a novelty act. Horn, ever the optimist with a stubborn streak, refuses to shelve it. He pours savings into polishing the track, adding layered harmonies that make it pop. Little do they know, this underdog creation is about to collide with a fledgling network desperate for content. But getting it on vinyl? That battle nearly derailed everything from the start. What if the tune that predicted music's future was pieced together in a haze of doubt and discarded tapes? By mid-1979, Horn and Downs had the bones of their track, but turning it into something timeless meant wrestling with the unknown. The core riff Horn brought to that first pub meetup was raw, a simple, insistent bass groove that mimicked a heartbeat under siege. It came from his late-night musings on how television was already nibbling at radio's edges, with shows like Top of the Pops luring listeners to screens. Downs, with his ear for the ethereal, suggested framing it as a cautionary tale, not just text triumph, but its cold indifference to the human voices it silenced. They envisioned a narrative arc, starting with a glamorous illusion, crumbling into mechanical mockery. Recording kicked off in earnest at SARM, where the air smelled of solder and stale takeout. Horn, doubling as engineer, mic'd up his bass through a mismatched amp, chasing that punchy tone that would cut through the mix like a warning siren. Downs unpacked his Fairlight CMI sampler, a beast of a machine costing more than their rent, borrowed from a contact in the prog scene. It let him sculpt sounds no one had heard before, glassy chimes for the verses, a throbbing pulse for the chorus that evoked assembly line futurism. Vocals were the trickiest. Horn's reedy tenor needed layering to sound anthemic, so they stacked harmonies until it felt like a choir of ghosts echoing from tomorrow. Bruce Woolley's input was the secret sauce. His verses painted vivid vignettes, like a diva reborn through surgery of the knife under studio lights, her image broadcast while real talent starved. It was Woolley's idea to twist the title into a double entendre, killing off the old star, not with malice, but inevitability. Challenges piled up like unspooled reels. The drum machine kept glitching, forcing manual tweaks that ate hours. Horn obsessed over the bridge, where synths swell like a tidal wave. He wanted it to feel prophetic, a glimpse of video's devouring airplay. They debated endlessly. Too pop? Too weird? A test-pressing league to a club DJ who spun it to puzzled crowds, calling it clever but forgettable. That stung, pushing them to refine the fade-out, where the music sputters like a dying broadcast, leaving silence as the punchline. By July, the full cut emerged, crisp, under 4 minutes, with a hook so infectious it begged replays. Island Records bit after a nudge from a sympathetic A&R rep, greenlighting a single release for September. Charts awaited. It rocketed to #1 in the UK, outpacing Disco Fever and Punk Snarls. Fans latched onto its wit, but insiders whispered it was a fluke. Horn and Downs knew better. This wasn't luck. It was a manifesto disguised as a bop. Yet as vinyl hit shelves, a bigger canvas loomed. Visuals that could amplify the message or bury it. And piecing those together, that demanded a vision as bold as the sound itself.
Imagine launching a visual revolution with less cash than a decent pub crawl. What could go wrong? By late 1979, with the single climbing charts, Horn and Downs realized audio alone wouldn't cut it in an era where bands like Blondie were already teasing clips on television. They needed a video, something to match the song's cheeky futurism, but budgets were a joke. Enter Russell Mulcahy, a 20-something Australian expat scraping by directing commercials in Soho. He'd caught their demo at a party, mesmerized by the lyrics' bite, and pitched a concept straight out of a fever dream, a world where media devours its creators, all shot in one manic day for £3,000. Peanuts, even then. Filming crammed into Pinewood Studios' backlot, a cavernous space echoing with phantom footsteps from old Hitchcock shoots. Mulcahy storyboarded chaos, Horn and Downs as lab-coated mad scientists tinkering with a massive telescreen that births a glamorous android woman, her face a mask of flawless deception. The crew, barely a dozen strong, raced against the clock. Costumes were a nightmare. Horn's oversized white suits split at the seams mid-take, forcing hasty stitches while Downs' metallic vest snagged on props, drawing blood. Lighting rigs teetered on milk crates, casting shadows that Mulcahy exploited for eerie depth, turning the set into a labyrinth of flickering fluorescence and tangled cables. Symbolism dripped from every frame. The opening shot, a woman clawing out of a television, nails scraping glass like a birth from pixels, echoing the song's theme of rebirth through screens. Cut to surgeons in surgical masks, wielding scalpels over a starlet's features, plastic perfection under harsh bulbs, a nod to how fame reshapes souls. Horn mimes bass lines amid exploding monitors, shards flying in slow motion to capture destruction's beauty. Downs hammers keys as if summoning storms, his expressions a mix of glee and dread. Mulcahy layered in surreal touches, goldfish swirling in a bowl as stand-ins for lost radio souls, a burning newspaper headline proclaiming "Video's victory." Effects were low-tech wizardry, rear projection for cityscapes, practical pyrotechnics for blasts that singed eyebrows. Laughter mixed with curses as takes flopped. One explosion went awry, blanketing the set in smoke thick enough to choke a dragon.
Wrapped in 16 hours, the edit ran through the night at a rented suite, Mulcahy splicing reels with razor blades and splicing tape. The result? A 3.5-minute fever vision, equal parts camp and critique, that label suits hailed as brilliant, but shelved for promo circuits. It screened at industry bashes, wowing insiders but gathering dust otherwise. Why? The single's UK blaze faded stateside, and videos weren't currency yet. No one foresaw a channel hungry for exactly this kind of oddball gem. Little did they know, across the Atlantic, a startup network was about to unearth it from obscurity, thrusting their scrap heap creation into the spotlight it was always meant to shatter. How does a fledgling TV network bet the farm on rock and roll without a single clip in the can? Fast forward to 1980, and Warner Amex, a joint venture between Warner Communications and American Express, is cooking up something audacious, a round-the-clock channel dedicated to music videos. The brainchild of John Lack, a slick exec with a vision of blending cable's intimacy with radio's pulse, MTV promised to beam visuals into living rooms 24/7. But reality bit hard. Launch date loomed, August 1st, 1981, and their vault was emptier than a Monday morning studio. Big labels like CBS and RCA dragged feet. Stars such as Rod Stewart or the Rolling Stones saw videos as cheap promos, not art. Why bother, one manager scoffed. Kids still spin records on turntables. Desperation fueled ingenuity. Les Garland, MTV's programming czar with a flair for the dramatic, scoured Europe for scraps. British acts, hungrier and more experimental, had dipped toes into visuals. Think Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody clip from 1975, a mini-movie that cost a fortune but hooked viewers. Garland's team begged, borrowed, and bartered. Rod Stewart's Sailing arrived via faxed permissions. Pat Benatar's You Better Run from a dusty shelf. They amassed a whopping 30 clips, enough for a week's rotation if looped endlessly. Budgets strained. The flagship studio in New York City, a converted theater on Times Square, buzzed with tempires splicing Betamax tapes on clunky decks. Technical gremlins abounded, signal boosters fried, color bars mocked test runs. Lack-paced boardrooms, pitching to skittish investors. This isn't TV, it's the future of fandom. Amex ponied up millions, but doubt lingered. What if no one tuned in? Cable penetration hovered at 20%, mostly urban elites. The song selection saga was pure pandemonium. Garland wanted irony, a track that nodded to video's conquest. Scouts unearthed the Buggles clip from Island Records archives, a dusty reel gathering lint since its UK promo run. "It's perfect," Garland declared, eyes gleaming, "prophetic, punchy, and we own the rights cheap." Alternatives surfaced. Cliff Richard's Viva La Vida, with its explosive TV smash finale, got axed for being too violent. Execs feared suburban moms clutching pearls over shattered screens. The Who's You Better You Bet was too rowdy, Blondie stuff too disco-adjacent. By July, the lineup locked. Buggles at midnight, followed by Benatar, then a marathon of whatever scraps remained. Rehearsals in a dim control room felt like a heist, cues timed to the second, fades scripted for seamless loops. Horn and Downs, oblivious in London, caught wind via transatlantic call. "Your video's leading the charge." Horn chuckled, assuming hype. Little did they grasp the stakes.
As countdown clocks ticked, one final wrinkle threatened to black out the birth with a last-minute satellite snag that could have silenced the revolution before it sang. Ever catch a historic moment that almost didn't happen because of a loose wire? At 12:01 antimeridiem on August 1st, 1981, in a cramped New York control room thick with cigarette smoke and sweat, MTV's signal finally surged. John Lack, the network's steely founder, hovered over engineers like a hawk, his tie askew from hours of pacing. The chosen clip unspooled. The Buggles video, its synths crackling through speakers as Horn's voice crooned about screens eclipsing voices. On the master monitor, the iconic MTV logo, a flushy moonscape pulsing to a drum beat, faded in, then out, yielding to that surreal birth scene. Cheers erupted, fists pumping. Outside, Times Square's neon haze seemed to dim in deference. But triumph? It teetered on a knife's edge. Glitches had dogged the dress rehearsal for days. Satellite feeds from London wobbled, threatening blackouts. Once the whole feed froze mid-chorus, leaving mock viewers staring at a static test pattern. Technicians jury-rigged boosters with duct tape and prayers, their headsets crackling with frantic commands. "Cue the Buggles in 3, 2, Garland barked, heart in his throat. As the video rolled, a final hiccup. Audio sync slipped by a beat, voices lagging visuals like a tipsy dub. Quick-fingered operators nudged sliders, salvaging it just in time. Across the country, cable subscribers, maybe 2 million strong, clustered in cities like New York and Los Angeles, flicked on sets. In dorm rooms and basements, bleary-eyed teens gawked at this novelty. Music not heard but seen, in loop and glory. Word spread like wildfire through phone lines and word of mouth. By dawn, switchboards at record stores lit up with pleas for the track. What's that song with the exploding TVs? In the UK, Horn awoke to transatlantic buzz, his phone ringing off the hook from label reps crowing about overnight sales spikes. Downs, nursing a hangover in his flat, flipped on the telly to catch a delayed rebroadcast, grinning at their pixelated cells beaming into America. Critics panned it initially, a gimmick channel for lightweights, one Time scribe sneered. But viewers begged to differ. Ratings trickled in modest at first, hovering around 0.5% nationally. Yet in target demos of 12 to 34-year-olds, it spiked like a fever. Bars installed extra TVs. School kids mimicked the chorus on playgrounds. The Buggles single, dormant on U.S. charts since its 1979 release, clambered to number 40 on Billboard, a Lazarus leap fueled by this midnight miracle. What no one predicted was the ripple. Labels rushed tapes overnight, videos becoming the new gold rush. Horn later quipped it felt like winning the lottery blindfolded. Yet amid the euphoria, whispers of fragility lingered. Would this blaze sustain or fizzle like so many cable experiments before? As the sun rose on MTV's first day, the answer crystallized in the unlikeliest revival of a tune, once dismissed as fluff.
Isn't it wild how a dusty reel can rewrite fortunes overnight? The Buggles video, once a footnote in promo piles, became MTV's unwitting savior, and in turn, it yanked the track from obscurity's grip. By the morning after launch, phone lines at Island Records jammed with American retailers clamoring for stock. The single, which had limped to number 1 in the UK back in 1979 but barely registered stateside, suddenly vaulted to number 40 on the Billboard Hot 100. Horn fielded calls from baffled DJs. "This weird British thing, it's blowing up our playlists." Sales tripled in weeks, vinyl pressing plants churning round the clock to meet demand. Downs, watching charts from his London flat, marveled at the math. One spin on a nascent channel equaled thousands of radio plays, proving visuals' raw power. But the real earthquake hit the industry harder. Labels, once stingy with video spends, flipped scripts. Pre-MTV, clips cost peanuts, maybe $5,000 for a static performance shot. Post-premiere, budgets ballooned to 6 figures, directors like Mulcahy commanding fortunes. Duran Duran, spotting the game, funneled cash into opulent epics like Hungry Like the Wolf, filmed in Sri Lanka's jungles, turning unknown Brits into global heartthrobs. Madonna's Lucky Star followed suit, her provocative dances cementing image as the new currency. Radio, that old reliable, felt the squeeze. airplane metrics tumbled as programmers chased visual hooks. Executives dubbed it the Buggles effect, a single broadcast sparking a paradigm shift where songs lived or died by their screen appeal. Horn, ever reflective, noted in interviews how their satire mirrored reality. Videos didn't just kill radio stars, they minted new ones, demanding bands trade grit for gloss. Artists adapted in droves. Michael Jackson's Thriller opus, a 14-minute mini-film budgeted at $500,000, became the gold standard, grossing millions in promo value alone. Even holdouts like Bruce Springsteen relented, his Dancing in the Dark clip birthing the Courtney Cox era. The ripple touched production too. Synths and sequencers, once niche, flooded charts, echoing the Buggles' electronic blueprint. Yet for Horn and Downs, the windfall was bittersweet. Royalties rolled in, funding Horn's next moves, but the duo's novelty tag stuck, their album The Age of Plastic peaking modestly at number 54 in the US. Fans flooded fan mail with letters. "You predicted it all, now live it." Whispers grew of tours, but studio life called louder. As MTV's signal strengthened, beaming into 80% of US homes by 1983, one question lingered. What became of the prophets who sparked the fire once the blaze consumed everything in sight?
What happens when your biggest hit casts a shadow that swallows your future? For Horn and Downs, the 1981 MTV blaze was a double-edged sword, glory that gilded their name but branded them forever as the one-hit duo. By 1980, with The Age of Plastic out and the single fading from UK turntables, the pair sensed the walls closing in. No tour dates beckoned. Labels eyed them as a flash in the pan, not stadium fillers. Woolley had long split for his own folk-tinged path, leaving Horn and Downs to ponder next moves over pints in a quiet Soho bar. "We're not a band," Horn admitted in a rare, candid chat. "We're inventors who got lucky." They dissolved the Buggles amicably, the name retired like a prototype too quirky for mass production. Horn pivoted hard, channeling that studio sorcery into production gold. He snagged the engineering gig for Yes's Drama album in 1980, replacing the ousted John Anderson with his own vocals, a bold move that split fans but honed his ear for epic soundscapes. From there, the floodgates opened. He helmed ABC's The Lexicon of Love, its orchestral swells defining new wave romance. Then came Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Relax, a band on BBC bombshell that topped charts for 5 weeks, its bass thumps engineered to rattle speakers. Horn's touch turned Seal's soulful croon into 1994's Kiss from a Rose juggernaut, earning Grammys and soundtracking Batman Forever. By the 90s, his Sarm West studios became a mecca for McCartney, Pet Shop Boys, and even Robbie Williams, amassing credits worth hundreds of millions. Yet Horn stayed humble, crediting the Buggles as his mad scientist phase, a petri dish for the electronic wizardry that redefined pop. Downs, meanwhile, chased prog rock's labyrinthine highs. He slotted into Asia's supergroup lineup for their 1982 debut, keyboards blazing on Heat of the Moment atop the Billboard 200. That band, a Yes ELP King Crimson mashup, sold millions but imploded amid egos. Downs circled back to Yes in 1996, co-producing keys for their Millennium tours, bridging the gap between classic epics and modern sheen. Solo ventures dotted his path, film scores, prog revivals with Downs' Braid association, but he shunned spotlights, preferring the boardroom of sound over stage pyrotechnics. Fast forward to recent whispers, and revival fever simmers. In 2023, the pair dusted off the bug for a handful of Seal openers, their first live spin since the dawn of the 80s. Fans packed venues, chanting lyrics like a time machine's hum. Downs teased in a podcast, "Trevor and I swapped demos. Something's brewing." Speculation swirls. A lost Buggles album from the vaults? A full tour marking MTV's 40th? Horn demurs, but his eyes sparkle with that old mischief. In a world of TikTok clips and AI anthems, their echo endures, not as relics, but reminders that one bold stroke can echo across decades, begging the question, has video truly killed the star, or just set it free to reinvent?
So there you have it, the unvarnished tale of how a synth-fueled satire from two London tinkerers collided with a desperate cable gamble, birthing an era where screens didn't just play music, they redefined it. From pub scribbles and shoestring shoots to midnight glitches and chart resurrections, Video Killed the Radio Star wasn't Destiny's darling. It was ingenuity's underdog, clawing its way to icon status amid rejections and near misses. Horn and Downs, those accidental architects, watched their prophecy unfold. Radio's cozy crackle yielding to video's glossy glare, spawning empires for Duran Duran dreamers and Madonna moguls alike. Yet the real kicker? In today's torrent of TikToks and algorithms, that 1979 warning feels eerily prescient again. Has video slain the star, or merely morphed it into endless streams where creators chase likes like DJs once chased airtime? Ponder that next time a click hooks you. Maybe the Buggles were onto something eternal. If this dive into music's wild pivot sparked your curiosity, hit that like button, drop a comment on your favorite MTV memory, and subscribe to Retro Celeb Talk for more untold origin stories that shaped the sounds we still hum. Who knows what forgotten gem we'll unearth next?